We are here, and I already see early birds posting. Hello, Lee. Hello, Amy. Hello, Matthew. Welcome to this ridiculously fun live. And hi, Joel.
Hello, thrilled to be here. How are you, Allison?
I am doing fabulous. I'm so thankful for everyone for being here today. I know it has been a roller coaster of a time for everybody in business or anybody living and breathing right now. And we really appreciate having your, literally having your time and your attention today. We couldn't thank you enough.
Absolutely.
And I can see here, oh my gosh, they're coming in as well. Mena says, hello. And Matthew says, let's go. And Lee says, looking forward to this. And Amy says, love this collaboration. I don't believe Joel can see the comment. So they also said, I'm far more gorgeous than Joel.
Oh,
And
no. Oh.
So as people come into the chat, we would love to know, where are you viewing this today? And what is your favorite snack? Joel, what is your favorite snack?
Ooh, I'm a sucker for chocolate, like so many other people. So I'm gonna say some variation on the chocolate covered peanut is where I gravitate toward. If I'm feeling fancy, then it's the full M&M brand, and then if I'm feeling less fancy, it's whatever bulk supply I can get my hands on. What about you?
Oh, it's gotta be salty. So chips, I can never be angry at chips because they come in
Right.
like 900,000 flavors.
Yeah.
All dressed is the most amazing flavor of them all. Although
Uh-huh.
I recently had one that was cumin lamb
Ooh.
barbecue, and that one may have beat topping that. So wonderful, wonderful. See more people again. Thank you so much for popping in here. Would love to know where you're calling in from. And also, thank you, Matthew. I don't think I signed up for anything faster in my life. Warms my heart as a marketer talking about ideal customer profiles, because there's lots of things we could talk about. I'm glad that you're into that, which is fab. Wonderful. So I would say we're expecting about a minute delay between what we're seeing right now. So darlings, as we're talking today, please let us know any ICP questions you might have. I'm monitoring the chat if we don't address it now. And then cheesies. Yeah. Hawkins cheesies. Oh, cheesies are grad. There's a photo of me. I was 3 and I'm covered head to toe in cheesies in my high chair. So I feel it. Like,
And very little has changed from then to now. Yeah.
oh, let me see here. Wonderful. Okay, so what are we going to be covering today? Oh, hello, Greg. Oh, great to have you. That is fabulous. And Angela, cheese, just cheese. Yeah, just cheese is fabulous. So today we are going to be covering B2B ideal customer profile, which we're probably going to just say ICP and not Insane Clown Posse. Great
Right.
band, maybe, but not what we're talking about today.
I'm not sure I'm willing to endorse that, but okay.
Right. Yeah. It's a bit of a thing. But let me see here. That will derail your strategy, wasting time, energy, and budget. It's true. We're not here to be negative about what's going on. I've seen it at all levels of organizations and brands. It's okay. We're always refining this, and we're here to talk about the common ones we see, and then offer some tips, suggestions, and strategies to like amplify up what you have. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to be covering a bunch of the myths that we experience all the time. Either we have to counsel our clients about, or we see in the market. And then, I'm sure we're going to have lots and lots of questions to dig into once we kind of go over just a couple of the myths that we've prepared.
Excellent. So again, as we're going through, if you have any questions for us, we are more than happy to answer those. We'll be keeping an eye on the chat there. So I thought we'd start off with just an intro. Who are these two people that are spending time on your computer, or for the folk watching the replay as well? Thank you so much for your time. So Joel, go ahead. Who are you? What the heck you doing here?
Sure. I'm Joel Kelly. I'm one half of Kelford Inc. And what we do is we show entrepreneurs the way to always knowing what to say. So what that means is, as a marketing consultancy, we work with entrepreneurs who are struggling to demonstrate their unique and special value in words and messages to their ideal customers. So we help them discover what their unique value is, what sets them apart in the world and the market. We help them define that value into a reinforceable marketing position mission and value proposition. And then we help them demonstrate that value via real words, real messages, real content that attracts and then keeps those customers that are ideal for them. So unsurprisingly, we talk about ideal customers and ideal customer profiles all the time. So I'm really excited to get to share some of those experiences and some of those insights today.
I'm really excited too, because when I asked you to do this, you were like, and how? And I'm really happy to do that, and for us to geek out here with you and the chat and all that good stuff. So over on my side, I'm the host today. Hello, I'm Alison Kay, and I help B2B brands basically work with their market, especially what they offer is highly innovative, complex, or sensitive in nature. So how do you market when your ICP will not willingly raise their hand publicly and say, we would like this, or they're not necessarily in the regular marketing channels that you would expect? So how do you reach them? How do you engage with them? Darlings, that's the juicy kind of work I love to do, especially if brands are putting good into the world. So aspects of DEI, sustainability, any status quo, or anything highly innovative in life sciences. Anything I can do to help you attract B2B and B2O too, business to organizations as well, especially when you offer something it's a bit sticky. Let's get it unstuck. And in the work I've done over the last 14 years, no matter what size an organization or brand is, we're going to have to revisit ICP. And it's not like, my opinion is marketing is forever an experiment. There is no way to get a perfect thing going. And so I thought we would go over some of the things that I catch, no matter what size or growth stage a company is in, so that all you lovelies listening here can go, oh, great idea for us to work on now. So between two of our brains, we're hoping to answer that. And I do see, yes, how do magnets work? Great question. Matthew, I don't know how magnets work. Must be magic. So today we're going to go over, the way this is going to work is rapid fire. Joel and I have 3 common mistakes that we see each. We're going to kind of spell them out very quickly and offer tips. So if that generates any ideas for you in the chat right now, you can ask follow-up questions. If you're watching the replay, please drop them here or DM either Joel or myself, and we'll be sure to answer those if they're not answered today. And then we'll open it up for Q&A, which is really the really fun part about all of this. So before we get into the tips, Joel, anything else you wanted to say to kind of set the scene for today's conversation?
Well, I just know we have people joining from all over the world and across lots of different industries. We have people who are established, service providers in their fields. And I'm sure we've got a few folks here who are pre-revenue, pre-customer, and just getting started on their journey. So, we're going to try to tackle as many of those questions as possible. But like Alison said, feel free to reach out to us directly if there's something that we didn't get a chance to cover, or if you have a specific question. But overall, whatever your questions are as it relates to finding, locating and actually reaching out to those ideal customers, please pop them in the chat.
Oh, awesome. It is so true. I appreciate you saying that as well. And then something could happen and you may be back in one of those stages of those journeys at any given moment, because life be a wonderful roller coaster. And we hope that you take what you need now, right, for those times. So let me talk about the first one that we have today is, who doesn't love alliterations? Relying on paltry personas. So the persona, as we often know, it is this one pager, usually with Sales Sam or Busy Mom Becky. And it has lots of these. Commonly, you'll see a lot of demographics and firmographics, right? Where they are, their age, what the revenue is of the company, and maybe their industry. And something has happened where I see a lot of them, they fit on one page. And you darlings, getting it all on one page is not the goal. So if your persona, or moving into more like there's persona, there's ideal customer profile, ideal client profile, they can be juicy documents. These things can be multi-pages. They can be inside of Miro with little diamond arrows drawn all around them. But what I see is they're simple. They're often created from our hopes and dreams as the Marcom team or as the founder of the company. And that's great, but it's really hard to market with that information because it's so broad. We all know the joke. If you wanted to market to a 70-year-old white male who lives in a castle in the UK, you could get Ozzy Osbourne or you could get the King, right? So these aspects don't necessarily make up those pieces. And they're a little flat, they're little paltry. And so that might be why you have this beautiful document, but you're not really like, how do we use that in our communications? How do we use that? How do we find out where they are? So my tip is that basically what you want to do is you want to going deeper. And we're going to cover in some of these other sessions, I think, are these other questions that we have, some aspects of those. Mine typically are 2 pages long, and they're actually more a series of questions that we have to prove and answer back as the brand. And once we get into those, I think the other part is sometimes it becomes either, often if you're smaller, I see the web designer or graphic designer or brand designer submits you this 1-page persona. And that's a very humble beginning start. But if you can grow this item, I also recommend that it gets shared with your sales team, customer service team, your board. So part of it is getting more of a feedback from the team who have the actual touch points of the people that are going to be working with you, your ideal customer profiles. So you can get some of that feedback. And I know that Joel's going to go a little bit more in deep about what that looks like and how to go about it. So the first tip is, if you find this thing isn't deep enough, you're allowed to add to it, darlings. That's what I would say about personas. And again, if there's any questions regarding personas, that's fab. And Joel, do you have anything you'd like to add on that piece?
No, I completely agree with that. What I often find myself saying is that personas end up often being fictional. They're made up. They're best guesses or their hopes and dreams. And, fictional personas often turn into fictional customers. If we want real customers, we need real information, real statements they've made, real evidence to suggest that this is actually the best customer for us in particular.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I also see here, and yeah, Tasha, yes, the whole thing now is I want huge diamond decision arrow as convoluted as possible. Yep. I joke. You don't actually need that inside your personas, but hey, whatever makes you, I will say, yes, sometimes we can stand to be more creative with our personas and our ICPs and how we articulate that to folks. So do what works for you. I'm just always going to aim for more, deeper, juicy, darlings, juicy. Over to you, Joel.
All right. So the next myth we're going to talk about is really, it comes down to ignoring the complexity of making the decisions to get your ideal customer. So what I mean is, we often just throw out a big audacious goal, like I'm going to get this Fortune 50 client. This is who I want, or I'm going to make some huge amount of money this year, and I'll broadcast that publicly to really commit myself to it. Or I'm just going to have tons. I'm going to have 50 new customers or clients this year, and we write that down as if that is a goal. But it's not. It's a dream. It's an aspiration. We have to remember that everything is path dependent. Where you are today influences and in some way constrains where you can go tomorrow. So the question is not, how do I get to that giant audacious KPI or goal that I've set? And instead, what is the next best step I can take along that path? So I recommend, if you're working on your ICP, to set yourself goals like, not that I'm going to make $1 million or that I'm going to get 50 new clients, but that I'm going to interview my current clients about the value they experience while working with me. That's a good goal. Another good goal to have is that you're going to focus your marketing and offering and your efforts on what your best clients are telling you, is most valuable about your business, or that you set yourself the goal that you're going to stop pursuing lower value work and lower value clients. If you were to achieve all those goals, that would get you well on your way to that big audacious goal that you've set for yourself. So goals are checkpoints along the way to what you're trying to achieve, not the end in itself. So don't miss out on the complexity of the decisions you're making. Everything is path dependent. If you want that dream client, you need to find out for yourself what is the next best step along that path. So your ideal client might not be a fictional persona. They might be a client that's just slightly better than the current client you have now. And you need to find out how you could get more of your current ideal clients versus how you pivot your whole organization to now target this dream that you've set for yourself.
Oh, that's fabulous. I think you kicked on another point that I found very interesting, which is knowing when to stop. There's a wonderful person named Ann Dukes, and she is, among other things, a professional poker player. And she talks a lot about professional poker players. They don't always win because they're winners. They know when to fold them, know when to hold them. Know when to fold them. So I think you've raised a good point too of inside your strategy is to know when, like, against your KPIs, when is it okay to say, we ran this experiment enough, we tried this enough, and now we're ready to move on.
Yeah. And that is like the state and the date, I think might be what she calls it, is that's what you want to set for yourself, is what do I intend to achieve by when? so that if I haven't achieved it by that date, I know now is the checkpoint at which to make a decision, instead of hemming and hawing and going, oh no, have I gone too far? Have I sunk too many costs? Or is it time to change because I pre-committed to making a change if I didn't hit this checkpoint that I planned on before?
Absolutely. Now, I see that Tasha has dropped a question here in the chat, and I'm going to just bring it up because I think I could show it. There we go. How do we adjust our marketing strategy to align with current realism? Loaded question, but I thought I'd bring it up now, Joel, in this space. And again, Tasha, we're probably going to make some assumptions on what you mean by current realism. But Joel, are you able to see that comment on the screen?
Yep.
And yeah, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I'd love to. So let's just break it down for a second and talk about, there's two important terms that we're using here, marketing and strategy. And let's decompose this for a quick second. Marketing, what that means at the end of the day is demonstrating your value at a distance. And strategy, what that means at the end of the day is the structure to work efficiently to get what you want. So the question we're really kind of asking ourselves is, how can I create a structure around my activities such that despite whatever current realism or seizing the opportunity in any current realism, we're able to continue demonstrating our value at that distance? So the true answer is, you got to build in flexibility to everything you do. There's this old saying that, a tree without branches is apt to prove a barren pole. It's the branches, it's the ability to change direction that is at the heart of strategy. A strategy is not a plan. It's not a fixed set of activities. It's a structure to be able to keep working, to be able to keep adjusting. So build in those feedback mechanisms. When I get evidence that this is no longer working, what will I do instead? If we're talking current realisms about, things like, trade disputes, these are things that, of course, are going to affect innumerable businesses across, almost inconceivable geographies. What we have to remember is that these things were always possible, and they will continue to be possible. They are simply more probable than they used to be. So we want to build in that flexibility. We want to build in slack into the system. That is not just in our operation, but in our marketing strategy as well. What happens when we can no longer afford to do this advertising we plan to do? What happens when the big promotion we had planned, nobody sees it, nobody clicks? What happens when we invest all this money in this campaign and it doesn't buy us anything? Those are questions we need to be asking at every phase in the process. So yeah, adjusting to current realism, bake in flexibility, slack in the system. It will feel inefficient in the moment to be pursuing multiple opportunities at one time, but is inefficiency that builds resiliency. Efficiency, extreme efficiency, builds fragility. Be a little less efficient. Explore multiple routes so that you can pick and choose as you go in the current reality and future realities to come.
What he said. And I'm not doing it to be silly. I'm doing it to be true. Yes, the flexibility, which again, it's sort of like smile and frown at the same time. I know it's something that may feel like, but the flexibility is key. The willingness, especially if we're in the marketing marcom situation ourselves, that ability to also be able to refer back to that strategy and say no, because I think like we're not trying to add more to our we're also using this for us as marketers and communications folk to be like, no, because like I know this is happening, but no, because of this, and this is what we need in order to thrive and also feel secure in what we're doing. So I do appreciate that. Absolutely. Great questions. Thank you so much, Tasha. And again, any questions people have, please drop them in the chat as these are percolating in your mind like popcorn. So one I see is prioritizing that dream ideal customer profile over existing ones. So I get it. We're trying to hit goals. It feels good to work on new things, to start new things. But sometimes most of our gold is actually right beneath our noses if we take the time to dig. So often when I'm coming into work with brands, I get the benefit of being an outside opinion, an outside insight, coming in and hearing how people articulating this to me, and I'll see opportunity with existing clientele. So sometimes, and I know that most of us do have multiple ICPs that we're working with, but sometimes a deepening of segmenting who we already have can be huge for us. Number one, It reduces our workload in our marketing and communications because we've already got some systems put into place. We're just tweaking it a bit to see what's going on. Not digging, talking to them more might reveal that there are additional things that they want help with that we actually were either in mid-production work of creating as a product or service, or we had downplayed in our marketing communications, didn't realize that that's what people actually love the most, or that they are giving you an insight because we're in our worlds doing our thing. And then we're hoping our ICP meets us when we're ready for their world. They come into ours and we work with them. So we're really stuck in the working with them now. There's an opportunity, I feel, with existing customers and clients to talk to them and to get a sense of what's happening in the world, because you might be catching a trend. I'm going to call it a trend. I don't mean trend like trendy. I mean a trend of like what freaking matters to them right now beyond what we see as founders. That the founder myopia, that brand myopia is a real thing where we're so stuck in what we do. So I think there's an opportunity of, if you feel like things need to shift, before you go outward, I would recommend looking inward with your current clients. And I'm going to talk a little bit about doing, everyone's heard me say it a million times, about running interviews and doing listening tours. But I think sometimes we feel like what's happening now, we need to go outward. Dig deeper, darlings. The dream ones will come, but I wonder if maybe your current clients actually are your dream clients. It's just about opening up your mind a bit about how they work on it. And again, looking at results and looking at getting feedback to find that out. Anything you'd like to add about that, Joel?
No, I'm grinning because I'm so there with you. Like, often our ideal clients are a current subset of our existing client base. And what we need to do is continue to focus more on the best current clients we have and the efforts we could make to get more of those versus thinking we need to change or go in some brand new direction, which I think gets right into the next myth. And potentially I'm seeing Mana's question about what we feel the biggest ICP mistakes people and companies are making. I'm going to combine this right into the myth that I was going to talk about, which is thinking that your competitors' clients are your ICP. That thinking that, I don't need to figure out who my ideal customer is. They're that competitor's customers. That's who I want. I think this is extremely common. And I think it might be the most dangerous ICP mistake you can make, because your competitor didn't start with those clients or those customers. They grew into them. Remember that path dependency from before. They followed a path to get to those clients. You have to follow a path to get to those clients as well. It might not be the same path. It probably isn't, but it's still a path. You can't jump. I say you don't jump across the field of opportunity. You carve a path through it based on the next best client you're capable of acquiring. So your competitor has built a track record of credibility. If you want the same or similar clients, you need to build the same or similar track record. You can kind of try to brute force it with advertising or outbound sales, but that's a never-ending hustle for one, and it diminishes over time. It's going to get harder and harder and more expensive and more expensive. So if you want to grow sustainably and organically, that's about building your own credibility, which means becoming like the world's most credible expert in the field that you are in particular. So if you're working on your ICP, it's tempting to look, over there and go, how do I get those clients? When what you want to do is say, what am I the credible best at, and who are the best clients for that in particular? Like Alison was saying before, it's often the case you need to look inward less than outward. So you can take your competitors' clients as inspiration, as motivation, but not as a fixed target. And so ask yourself, what steps could I take to grow into clients like those based on my ability to build a track record and a reputation? And then who's the next best customer I could get that is along the path to that ideal? What are your thoughts on that, Alison?
Absolutely. And, it's easy for us to look at what a competitor or contemporary, I like to use that term as well. Ideally, a competitor is just like you, but they got a cost difference or one value difference. Yeah. Typically, and again, it's just shorthand. I love the concept of contemporaries because we are always in an ecosystem of which ideally your marketing is playing up what makes you unique and different in that ecosystem. So for us, when we look at what our competitors are doing, we don't have all the information unless our competitors are giving it away, which they're probably not, or two, you have a really wonderful client that is giving you, or you some sort of like inside baseball information going on. But for most of us, we see their websites, we see their socials, we see a lot of times I get follower counts and vanity metrics, although they can or cannot be vanity. It depends. We don't necessarily know how folk are getting that. We can sometimes see the outcomes of the engagement, right? So they might have a lot of followers on a particular channel, but no one is replying to their comments. No one is resharing it, or they have a small following, but the comments are huge, and they're always doing earned media, which in other words is they're bringing other brands in to show their clout inside of that ecosystem. And again, when we get into running interviews and listening tours, who we think our competitors are rarely who our ICP thinks about as an option. The classic example I always hear is, and I'm just making this up broadly, is chiropractors think that other chiropractors are their competitors and contemporaries. But that actually could be Pilates classes, it could be rubber bands, it could be eating better, it could be online stylists that talk about flexibility. You don't know, right? So the competitors are one aspect of it, but unless you really work for them, you're not going to know a bit about that. So competitors are good, but if you don't have all the information, we'll make assumptions that they're doing something we're not. And if that's the case, then you should equally say that you're doing something better than they're doing. If you're going to have a negative concept of what's happening, I argue that's made up based on storytelling to yourself. I recommend, well, what's the positive end of that too? Because both should exist in this make-believe world we have of what our competitors are or not doing to attract our ideal clientele.
Love it.
Okay, let's have a little quick check here in the comments. I love that these come up. I see here, Mena has another great question. What are your best practices for validating an ICP? This one's juicy. Joel, take it away. Squeeze some orange juice.
Yeah, what I often find myself saying is the only way to know if your marketing works is if it works. In that there are no guarantees. You it.
I'm so sorry. I hit the wrong button there. Can you repeat that last sentence?
Yeah, I was like, the only way to know if your ICP is correct is through that validation process of putting it out into the market. Is actually promoting your position based on that ideal customer profile, putting it out into the market, demonstrating the value of your experience, your expertise, your abilities at a distance via marketing, and then do you get clients from it? Do you get, and of course there are leading indicators. There are things like, are people showing interest? Are they engaging with this type of content? There are leading indicators like, are they becoming qualified leads? Am I entering interesting conversations? When I try out my marketing messages based on this ICP at a trade show or at a networking event or in person or at a backyard barbecue with friends, am I getting good responses? Those are great ways of validating your ICP. That's kind of like the bottom up way of doing it. The top down way of doing it is giving yourself a bunch of data and saying, does the data suggest that this ICP actually represents an attainable market? The downside with that is what it often leads you to believe is that unless you have some massive total addressable market, then your ICP isn't good enough. And I think instead, for most businesses, most of the time, you need your total demonstrable market. You need a market of a certain size that you're actually capable of demonstrating your value to them. And that can be just a small handful of potential prospects. You don't have to think, do I have 1 million people who could buy this from me? You couldn't sell to 1 million people right now, probably, if you tried, if you're a B2B service provider. You need to know, is there a minimum viable market to this? And how do I actually take this ICP, turn it into a marketing position, and then promote it to that ideal client? And am I getting the results I'm looking for? There are, like I said, there's other leading indicators, but in my opinion, the way to know if your marketing works, and ICP is a tool for your marketing, is if it works. Which means we do have to try it. We have to put it out into the world. You can experiment with social content. You can experiment with a handful of ads. You can experiment, without having to do some big public splash. But you must experiment. If that makes sense.
You must do something, not nothing. And I mean, because the beauty of and specifically marketing is being visible is key. And we might go, oh, it wasn't quite right. generally speaking, our ICP and the rest of the world do not know the nuances dancing in our head or inside of our strategic plan, right? So again, it's do something, and also, again, have a mechanism in place with your strategy that's going to check what feels like a way of validating that. And again, also talking to people as soon as possible. And I do mean that, getting on the phone, getting on Zoom calls. And I'm going to offer up, again, in a little bit, some tips around that. Because part of this work here is the over focus on who they are, but not what they need. And again, we use labels and put things in boxes because it's shorthand and it's easy. And ask any marketer, we get completely frozen up with like how to get the right title, the right word, the right adjective, which is impossible, because I identify as a queer individual, and there's some boxes I fit into and not others, and I don't necessarily want to be pegged down in that. We see that all data from a demographic is the representation of all gender expressions. We understand that some people might be based in Canada, but they might be an expat from another country, and vice versa. They may have all this stuff. So often what I see is when I ask, who are your, tell me in detail. When I have an intake form with prospect clients, I ask them, tell me about your ideal, your dream clients in detail. And I really, I really want to see them, because that's what I'm working with as a marketer, right? And often I'll get a lot of detail, but I don't get a sense of what those people need and how the brand fits into those needs. So marketing is all about, they didn't know you can exist, and you do something that they go, and they pay attention to you. And it's this moment, this catalyst moment, this triggering moment, this what's happening in them that would, and again, it's not when they thought of you, it's when you, what is happening in their world? What are they doing? What do they need, in which you make sense to begin to fit into their world? Because there's a big wall, darlings. Over here is us when we work with them in our sales. And over here are our ICP in their world. And they don't know what it's like to work with us or to have our products. They don't know, and so often when I talk, and I get it, again, it's that founder and brand myopia. We talk about when they work with us, we do this. And when they see it, and they get these results, it's like, but they don't even know you yet. So an ideal customer profile should really start thinking about what they need. So I ask questions like, what are their goals, of course, independent of what your goals are as a company or organization. What are these folks trying to achieve? So you'll be able to talk to their goals, because they don't know what it's like to work with you yet. They won't really necessarily know how to work with you. If you can prove to them that you align with their goals, they're not probably good at, it doesn't matter to them how you achieve it. They go, oh, you get me. You want to ask questions like, where do they hang out online and why? It's not enough to say that your ICP is on LinkedIn or on Instagram. There's different channels, or email marketing, or Reddit, or in private groups, or on ResearchGate, wherever it is that your clientele, your ICP hangs out online. It's not enough to be there, but to really understand what are they trying to do while they're there, because you don't want to have a mismatch where if they're there to be entertained and you're trying to educate, no matter if they saw you, they're not going to resonate, because that's not what their intention was to do on that platform. What did they try before they went to you? Because you can use that in your content writing and the way you position, and the sales team can use that so that people feel like you actually get them before you even try to sell. And the biggest one that I would love to see on more ICP documents is, why now? Mm. Because the now, we can't, number one, you can't convince, marketing's not about convincing people. You can't convince people of anything. You can only meet them when they're in market, which generally between 5 and 7% in the B2B space. The rest of the time they're out of market, which means they're floating around, and they might think what you talk about is important, or it might be on their mind, but they're not at a stage where they're considering and deciding to make a change. So really understanding, why now? Why should they think about you now? Why are you looking for the solution now? What changed between when it was just a thing and now it's critical? And this is going to help. Again, I love matching marketing into the sales flow, because they have to work together. And I find often in marketing, we silo ourselves, and sales silos ourselves the now, because if they're more in an intentional space of, we need to work with this now, that makes it a priority. It gives you more work to work with to help them see that you can help them now, as opposed to a passive later. So those were the 3 that I would ask, is what do they need? It's not who they are. Who they are helps you find out where they hang out online. But what they need helps you figure out how you're going to talk to them to convince them that you actually understand their world. Because in B2B, if you don't understand my world, I'm not going to take the risk of working with you. Joel?
Yeah, fantastic. The one question that I ask all my clients, we go through like a value defining process, and one of the questions we ask is, let's imagine your website disappeared. Let's imagine your LinkedIn profile disappeared. Let's imagine your office, the sign on your office went away. You had no ability to do external marketing for your business. Who would find you anyway? Which gets you into thinking about who is out there in the market looking for what you do in particular. And are you where they go to look? And are you there when they go to look? That simplifies so much of this process. We start thinking about, how do I get my message to someone, when it's so much easier often to ask, who wants my message, because they're in a state of need, desire, and urgency. And that can make things just so much simpler than trying to do that top-down approach.
Oh, I love it. And I see some light bulbs going off there too, which is just fantastic. And Lee has another juicy. Folk, you have the best questions. These are just, thank you, bottom of my heart. Thank you for these. Do you have any examples of tactics or approaches in determining your ICP that are still getting hyped on LinkedIn, but you feel are failed points to avoid? So, Joel, again, I always like to defer to the guest. What do you think?
I appreciate it. It's like, you know, I can talk. I have a million things I want to say about everything. You know what? Let's I'm going to combine this as well, because this gets right into the last myth, which is the mistake I see people making the most. You know, if it's not just choosing your competitors' clients as your ICP, the next mistake is thinking that defining your ideal client is something you do once a month, or once a quarter, or once a year, or most likely once and then never again. It's not. It's something you're always doing. So we see a lot of advice about making it this long, intensive, one-off process, when instead it's a constant state of evolution. Don't think about defining your ICP as revolution. It is evolution. It is one little incremental step at a time. So instead of seeing it as this one-off kind of effort, or this one-off endeavor, if you're a B2B, provider, you probably have a lot of one-on-one interaction with your clients. Every single one of those interactions is an opportunity to be reviewing and refining your ICP. Marketing legend Mary Wells Lawrence says you need the nosiness of a detective. And I love that that's how you want to approach it, is be like incredibly nosy about how your ideal clients experience your value. What are they getting from you? How do they describe it to other people? There's a question, you can ask your clients that I love, which is, if you had to refer me to a friend, what would you say? And they'll tell you, you should work with Joel for XYZ reason. And then you kind of dismiss that answer, because that doesn't actually help you, but it starts it off. Then you ask them, if that friend were to object and say they're too expensive, or I've never heard of them, or they're not big enough, or they don't do exactly what I need, what would you say to overcome that objection? That is going to get you such important information. And that is going to tell you that your ideal clients want actually one thing in particular. And you can constantly kind of evolve your ICP to focus narrower and narrower and narrower on that particular piece of value that you are the very, very best at. So this is constant. You don't do your ICP once and then never again. You're always doing it, so that you can constantly keep focusing and refocusing. Do we have time for the quick exercise, Alison?
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. So one thing I'd like everyone to do, we're going to have to do this fast, obviously, so that we have time for other questions, but there will be a recording of this, so if you want to review it later. But what I'd love for you to do is, we're going to write down 3 things. First, write down the 3 best or favorite clients you're currently working with. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to make that decision. You're going to write it down based on your favorites. That might be the most financially profitable. It might be the most emotionally profitable. Emotional profitability is, after you work with them, you feel better, not worse. And there are some emotionally unprofitable clients you've worked with, where you work with them and you just feel terrible. And then or it might be, clients that are close to your dream clients. Whatever it is, write down your 3 favorites. Now, what we're going to try to do is, we're going to look for the areas of overlap that these clients share in common, because that's going to tell us a lot about who our ideal next best customer is. So first, write down, what is their shared role? It's basically like you're trying to draw a circle around what each of them do that's as narrow as possible. So do they have the same role within their different organizations? Do they have the same role within their life, their family? Do they have the same role within are they the skeptic, for instance, in the organization? Or are they the fact finder? Or are they the advocate? What's their role? Describe that in a sentence that encompasses all three of those clients. That's one. Second one, what's their shared value? As in, what did they say they bought from you? Give you an example. If you're an accountant, you're a B2B accountant. Nobody says, well, I bought from my accountant accounting services. They would say something like, well, I work with my accountant to make sure my taxes get done on time and accurately. Or I work with my accountant to lower my tax burden. Or I work with my accountant so I don't have to do my books. It's something very clear like that. So what is the thing each of your best clients would say they actually bought? How can you describe that as focused as possible, which still encompasses all of them? Last one, shared values as it relates to how they buy things. So are your clients people who just want the best deal? Are your clients the people who want the best they can afford? Are these clients people who want a really hands-on approach in the sales process? Or are these people who want to just click a button on a website and do a transaction? What are their values as it relates to how they purchase things? Write that down. Again, what they all have in common. Now, what you're going to realize is that almost certainly you only wrote down 3, and I bet one of them doesn't belong. You had this innate instinct to fill out the list. You grabbed 2 that had something in common, and then you threw a third one in there to make it balanced. Take one away. Now you're down to 2 of your current best clients, and you know their shared role, you know their shared value, and you know your shared values. The next question I have for you is, how could you get one more client exactly like them? That becomes a little bit of your ICP. I want this client. I want the client who wants this from me. And I want the client who likes to buy things in this way. Get more of your current best before you start worrying about getting that fantasy client that's off in the future. How's that sound?
Oh, I don't know. People knew they're going to be getting into a little mini exercise there, but that's incredible. And I think just thinking about it, right? Even if you haven't been in a stage yet to articulate these or verbalize them, let them sit with you for a couple of days. Bring in other folk inside the team from other sides. So not just those of us in the Marcom team or just the founder. Bring in folk who actually have touch points, right? To have the again, I'm trying to de-silo, even small. Like it doesn't matter. Like people are like, siloing is for big enterprises. No, darlings, I see it happen in teams of 4, right? Where we all have our own little thing to go. So thank you.
Or co-founder teams who are not talking to each other, who have decomposed the business into its 2 sides, and they don't have view through into sales and operations. That happens all the time as well. Yeah. What we'll often tell is we interview every stakeholder in our client's organization. And what we always remind them is consensus is our problem, not your problem. Just tell us the truth about what you see. We'll figure out what the actual overarching perspective is. You don't have to worry about consensus. Your marketing partner can worry about that, but you need to be truthful about what each of you are seeing.
Excellent. And Angela says, thank you for that, which is incredible. And so if you have what Joel has talked about, I alluded to listening tours and one-to-one interviews. And Lee had asked a question earlier about what's still being kind of poked around LinkedIn that you don't find is still valuable. I'll kind of flip that question a bit and be like, I see a lot of people talk about the power of talking to your ideal customer profiles, not for sales, but for marketing. And everyone's like, yes, 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 yes. I want to wage 5 imaginary bucks that we all say yes. And then we go right back to using AI and other market research tools and not actually talking to human beings. So if you have a bit of a framework from what Joel has done, what's the next step? So there's 2 different ways to go about this. There's one-to-one interviews, which I typically recommend to your favorite customer, or client that you have right now, the one that you want to replicate more of. And there's listening tours where you're going to talk to folk who are not current clients. They might be potential prospects, but your goal is not to sell at all or to mention anything that you do. And I'm going to focus on that listening tour one for a second. So this is really helpful to kind of, remember talking earlier about validating and prototyping and experiment. This is low stakes, right? Because number one, if you talk about it the correct way, the person coming into this listening tour knows they're not going to be sold to. that just and I'm serious, darlings. No demos, no telling about your price points. It's all about, typically what it is I usually put I'll ask clients, they'll put out a post on the channels that their ICP hangs out, and it says, we're looking for, and then describe the person that Joel mentioned, for a 30-minute market research conversation about, and then you kind of frame the topic of what it is your company offers a solution for. And I usually will up the stakes a bit by saying, as thank you for your time, if you have any questions related to that topic, I'm happy to stay on another half an hour, 30 minutes to answer it. So now you're asking their opinion. They know they're not going to be sold to, and they know that if they had any questions that they can ask you. It's like a kind of a mini consult in that way. And what myself and clients have experienced is, number one, there's a series of 7 questions you can ask, and they're usually related around, we've heard some of the classics, like when it comes to, internal organization management, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you like to happen? There's other things of questions like, when you think about that topic, where do you go to learn more? That's an interesting one, because sometimes your ICP will tell you, oh, we read these books, these podcasts, we go on these Reddits, we really appreciate this influencer. Darlings, go find those people and digest how they're writing. The flip side is they could say, I don't. I work my 9 to 5 and I go home and I don't think about that. And that's also very important in marketing to understand of like where your ICP is. So in those questions, it's about asking their perspective. They will often give you a lot of information. You've never mentioned what it is you do, generally speaking, and you don't have to try to sell. And usually what happens around the 30-minute mark, when you say, thank you so much for your time, they'll go, you got to tell me what you do. What are you all about? Because there's just been this give and take. So, and that's a great way to safely test ideas. You can get a lot. I'm speaking to 5 people who are in that ICP range who know, and I've also had myself and clients have gotten clients out of those conversations because you centered it on them and not our needs as an organization or company. So there you go, darlings. 2 ways to prototype, to see how things are going, to test, to validate, to get insight, to get the gold you need for your copy. It's there, but I'm just, bottom of my hearts, this is an experiment. I know it feels high because it's jobs and revenue and growth are on the line, but you've got to try something. I think marketing has a marketing problem of making it sound like if you do this and you attribute this attribution, you're going to get it perfect. No such thing. It's a big, wonderful experiment of which, as you make better bets, you can make better bets.
Just to add to that, it's a saying I say all the time: marketing rarely fails, it usually just stops. So you need to do whatever you need to do to keep going, which means, don't let yourself get discouraged by the enormity of the task. And I think a lot of prospect research, it can be just scary and intimidating. How do your explanation there was amazing. I think that's such a great way to tackle it, but that can still feel quite overwhelming. So think about what would an easier way look like. And sometimes that's, instead of looking at prospects, really spend more time with your actual customers, the people you're working with day to day, dig into their experience. I like to say, instead of having to search for your ideal customer, you can be led to your ideal customer by focusing more and more on the people you're currently working with and getting more and more of your best ideal current clients. And then you can kind of be led through a winding path that you would never be able to articulate or see from where you're standing today. But in hindsight, you'll realize you are following a very interesting path. But start from the inside, look inward into your business, and that will give you the confidence to go outside, to go outward, to start asking prospects, to start doing listening tours, to start getting, putting yourself out there. But sometimes that confidence can be built by talking more to your existing customers.
And honestly, a 60-minute call can achieve more than 20 minutes looking at a giant spreadsheet or pulling up data from SEMrush or something and being like, oh, I have it, but like I can't connect it to a human being. As long as marketing's dealing with humans, darlings, it's going to be finicky, and those best practices. I ran a poll yesterday asking what bugged people most about having ICPs. And the top answer was actually getting them to engage. That was the number one, followed by juggling multiple ICPs and then getting them right. And I guess getting them right is a bit of a throwaway in terms of you'll never get it right, but you can get closer to what it is. Joel, any insights about getting them to engage or juggling multiple ICPs? And again, darlings, we have time for one more question if any come up.
Yeah, I just getting your ICPs to engage with you with your messages. Is that the
Yeah.
Okay, here's another mistake I see all the time is thinking that you can just go ask someone if the service you're offering is something they would like to buy. You will get one of two answers. An answer where like, yeah, that sounds interesting, and that person will never buy from you. They were probably never a customer. They're telling you what you want to hear, or they'll say no because you didn't promote it to them in an interesting way. So if you want your ICP to engage with your messages, you have to do the act of marketing. You have to demonstrate your value, your expertise, your credibility over time at a distance. The line I'm starting to use is that your ICP is written in sand, not stone, which means time will degrade it. Circumstances will degrade it. You will get distracted from your ICP. You need to keep going out there and re-etching it in the sand so that because it will not stick. It's a constant process of you reinforcing it, which really starts with realizing you need to promote it. You need to demonstrate it. Your ICP is just a piece of paper until it becomes a message that you're putting out into the market that actually demonstrates your value, if that makes sense.
Oh, I love that. And again, I offered up freely to folk that if you're looking to trade time, because this is coming back to the classic doing more with less, that there are ways to talk with the other teams and other stakeholders to position doing this ICP work. If you were like, well, how am I going to do that on top of the work I'm doing? I would suggest maybe looking a bit to see, are you doing a lot of random acts of marketing where you're creating things new? Could there be a month period where you're repeating? I mean, this is just content distribution 101. But if you're like, we need to do this, also, but how am I going to have time to start talking to people on top of my already full schedule as either part of the Marcom team or as the founder or co-founders who are taking on the marketing responsibility? So could you eke out a month's worth of time where maybe you don't have anything new going on, that you could actually recycle some content, perhaps reduce by 20% how you're showing up online to create space to set up these conversations, to have them? Right. And again, it's sort of like you can go and buy tomatoes as seedlings. You still got to, or as little like stalks. You got to watch them grow. So again, I always get curious of what could you actually push away, understanding that what you're planting is seeds that will give you some more runway in the future. And that could be a conversation too around automating some of the things you're doing. So I'm not saying add to what you're doing. I'm saying create space for this in a time that makes sense in the natural flow of your marketing calendar, where you could just ease up a little bit on new stuff and plant some seeds. I think you'd actually would be more it might seem like, oh, we got to set up a time, we got to talk to them. Generally, after the call, clients tell me they are so jazzed with the conversations that they have that they automatically open up and make an edit, or they take it back to the team. So it might feel counterintuitive to, don't add it, push back something that actually isn't moving the needle to create space to do this. And I think just by talking to people, you're going to be re-engaged, and you're going to just feel a lot more centered as the brand, talking to the people that you're trying to reach in the first place.
Yeah, and I can make this even easier for you. This is coming from, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've worked with, some of the world's most recognized brands to solo independent consultants. I've led a team of 30 marketers who are direct reports. I've done all of this. And here's what I can tell you for certain. You're doing too much. You need to do less marketing, not more. Today, you have my permission and my request to stop doing something that isn't working so that you can refocus more attention and energy in the places that are more likely to work. So you have it from me. You're doing too much. You have my permission to do less so that you can do more, better in the areas that actually count.
Oh, I love that. And I hold space, and I send grace, and I send love, and I send grit, and I send funny fart jokes too to everyone here today to think about this, right? And to create that space, because creating that space and doing more with less, I always say that's great. So to Joel's point, what other less are we going to do? Like, let's take it away. We're not going to add more to what we're already doing. I would suggest taking it off. And I can see, again, some clapping here happening in the comments. So darlings, I'll give it one more minute here for any last question. Otherwise, I will dismiss class early today. And Joel, from the bottom of my heart, I am so thankful for your wisdom and for your openness and for your candor in these conversations today.
Oh no, Alison, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this conversation. This was an absolute blast, and I hope people will, if you like, I'm sure some question will pop into your head, this evening or tomorrow that you wish you had asked. It's never too late to ask either of us questions. Find us on LinkedIn. Our websites are up on the screen now. Reach out. And I'm sure we both agree we love talking about this stuff. So if you've got questions, you'll have to hold us back because we'll give you answers.
Again, and like as being curious cats, also you'll see what we say now when you come meet us. I do my best to get a little quieter and ask a lot of "tell me mores." Oh, that's a classic one too. Tell me more. What's really the challenge here? Tell me more.
Yeah, you're
What?
going to hear a lot of "what do you mean by that" from me.
Yes.
But that's how we
Yes.
get to the heart of it.
Oh, I just see lots of thank yous here. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Meta. Oh my goodness, so many folk. Lee and also Tasha and Angela and Greg. Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you for the folk who are watching this replay. Please reach out to us. Otherwise, darlings, I hope that the next bit of your Q1 and into Q2 is inspirational, that you have some pep in your step, and that whatever you're putting out into the world, that the world sees it and they're picking up what you're putting down. Darlings, I really hope that, and I trust it will happen with you. Yes, it's going to happen.
Take care, everyone.
Okay, darlings. Ciao.